Hey, welcome to Theology Preparedness. My name is John, and in being prepared for theological discussions, debate, knowing our Bible well, knowing how to fight against sin and temptation, I am currently working through the book Precious Remedies Against Satan's Devices. I'll post that up over here for a picture of it. Author Thomas Brooks, a Puritan writer. And what he's trying to do is to get us to recognize some of the tactics by which Satan and sin comes at us as Christians, so we know how to not only hold those off, but also basically circumvent those so we don't face them as head-on things. In other words, if you know how to block something, you block it and usually counter as well, right? So that's kind of the idea here. The one he has for us today as a sin or a temptation that comes at us is when, by presenting to the soul the crosses, losses, and sorrows and sufferings that daily attend those who walk in the ways of holiness. So, all that to say, hey, when you're trying to walk for Christ, when you're trying to live and walk with God in a holy and righteous way, what holds you down or what pulls you back, or what does temptation sometimes do? It says, what is there to gain by doing this? Aren't you missing out on so much other stuff? Look at all the stuff you're going to sacrifice. Look at all the stuff you're not going to get to do. Look at the shame and persecution that a lot of Christians go through. Wow, you really want that? And that's a tactic. That is a tactic of sin. It's like, wow, why am I going to miss out on some movie and look like a geek, Bible goody two-shoes to my friends when, I'm going to miss out on this movie that all the cool people are going to go see, or whatever. It could be a movie, a bar, I don't know, whatever it is for you that sin pronounces itself or presents itself to you in that type of manner, to say, look at what you're going to miss out on. Look at what you're going to suffer for. And Christians have, in very many ages and in nations around the world, suffered for their faith. And that's what this calls for. Is the suffering worth it? Well, Thomas Brooks has obviously collaborated and compiled a list of things on how do we combat that. So when you have that thought, when you are considering that, he says, for the first one, the first rebuke of that is to think, all afflictions suffered by Christians turn to their profit. So as Christians, when we suffer, well, it actually works for our good. Suffering produces endurance, and endurance character, and character holiness. We are tested and tried. A lot of pastors use that illustration of refining gold. Yes, it goes through the fire, but that helps bring to the surface the things that need to be removed to make it more pure, to make it more holy. So our sufferings, we need to look at them that way. If we suffer for something, well, that's probably for our good, actually. He says in point number 2, all such afflictions only reach their worst, not their best part. So by this, he means that the afflictions probably are only attacking things that need to be removed anyway. If a Christian is afflicted in something, we lament the loss of, I don't know, I'll just leave it general, some type of idol in your life. Well, you probably didn't need that idol anyway. It probably need to be removed. So to consider that as an option. Another way to combat this, he says in point 3, all such afflictions are short and momentary. When we face afflictions, tomorrow's another day. Give God the opportunity to fix it, to make it better. Yes, afflictions hurt. Trials hurt. Not going to diminish that the pain is real, the suffering is real, the heartache, the loss, relationships, certain breakups or things like that. You see people really have an emotionally hard time with that, but it's momentary. We have to be able to move on. We have to be able to look back up to God and say, okay, what's next? In point 4, he says, all such afflictions proceed from God's dearest love. God wouldn't work on you if he didn't love you. The discipline of a father is to correct the child and to bring them up in righteousness and holiness. If we really take seriously that we want to be remade into the image of God, then his work upon us, we have to trust that he is the good surgeon coming at us with a knife to remove what needs to be removed. And surgery is painful and it takes recovery. But it's far better than someone coming at us with a knife with murderous intent. I'm getting a little bit ahead on that point. But just think that when even we suffer, God is there with us in love. Point 5, he says, it is our duty and glory to measure afflictions not by the smart, the pain of it, but by its end. So when you suffer something and you're going through it, try to, and again, don't want to diminish the suffering and just say, toughen up and get over it. All that kind of stuff. Pull your boots up or whatever, whatever. All those crass kind of sayings. No, when it hurts, it hurts. But one of the things that as we go through trials and suffering and things like that, and we're, persecution maybe even, what is its end? What am I standing up for? What is this goal going to reach? Because obviously the suffering is suffering. And when you're in the middle of it, it hurts. But it's not an end unto itself. So do you measure it by the pain and the circumstances of what you're going through? Or kind of like the refining fire, the purity and the refinement that you're going to have for the betterment of yourself at the end? That's what Thomas Brooks is trying to get us to look at. Even in your worst circumstance, try to look past it to what you're gaining in the end. That was point 5. Point 6, God's design in saints' afflictions is to try, not to ruin their souls. So when we are tried by sins and things and temptations and trials and persecution and all that, it's for our betterment. God is trying to better us. How to illustrate this? Patience. A lot of people will say, I have great patience. Well, your patience is only patience until when it's tried. You have some kids screaming on an airplane. Well, where's your patience now? Are you still patient in the midst of what's going on? Are you still faithful? Are you still joyful? Are you still looking to Christ in the midst of the things that try to pull you away? It's easy when everything's going well. Oh yeah, I have all the patience in the world. Well, you'll see how much patience you really have when the trial comes, when the persecution comes. What is your faith like then? So it's when we're tried, when we go through these different sufferings, that it reveals how much of the character we claim to have of Christ within us, how much of it's really there then. And lastly, Thomas Brooks gives us point 7. The afflictions, wrath, and misery consequent upon wickedness are far worse than those linked with holiness. So his final point is, as you're going through something now, if you're suffering for Christ's sake, if you're suffering as a Christian, not only look at it in these 6 points that we addressed, but in the 7th, you at least have the hope of glory that, kind of like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he tells the king, say, my God can deliver us, but even if he doesn't, we're still not going to bow down to your statue. And so what is that conviction there? That, hey, the end of me suffering and even possibly dying as a Christian at the hand of something here on earth, it far outweighs me not doing so, dying as an unbeliever or even living as an unbeliever. Their consequence is worse. So anytime someone's tempting you, persecuting you, anything like that for your Christian beliefs, it's not just anything, but for standing up for Christ, and you face these kinds of sins and temptations pointing at you, say, well, why suffer? Why be called a goody two-shoes? Just go along with it. Just give in. Just give yourself to it. Why are you going to suffer for no reason? Well, that's just it. I am going to suffer for very good reason, because I'm going to stand for God. I'm going to stand for Jesus and his glory. I stand in the power of the Holy Spirit, and I'm going to allow myself to suffer for his name's sake. Because if I don't, the suffering for not doing so at the end as an unbeliever, as a non-Christian, that suffering is eternal. That suffering doesn't end, day or night. Revelations 14. Go check that out. But that's it. That's all we're going to look at for today for precious remedies against Satan's devices. We'll pick up chapter 10 next time. Thank you again. God bless and take care. Bye-bye.